Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is Wednesday, May 29th, 2024, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today, because it's Wednesday, that means we are going to talk about all the AI news from the last 7 days. And I am thrilled to say that we have the entire Daily AI Show crew with us today. So let me call them out. We've got Jyunmi, Beth, Karl, Eran, Robert, Andy, and I'm Brian. I make number 7. So yeah, we have the whole crew here today, which means that we have no shortage of news to say with you. So I am not going to take any time up front, and we're just going to get into it. And let's see. I don't know. I'm just going to pick somebody off the board here. I heard you talking, Karl, right before we went live. I came in a little late, so why don't you kick things off for us?
Sounds good. I think one of the biggest news was OpenAI board formed safety and security committee. That's not really news, kind of news with security, but the bigger thing is that they are ready to train their next model. And it says here, a first task of the safety and security committee will be to evaluate and further develop OpenAI's processes and guardrails and safeguards over the next 90 days. At the conclusion of those 90 days, we'll share the recommendations. Because I didn't read the paragraph before, OpenAI has recently begun training its next frontier model, and we anticipate the resulting systems to bring us the next level of capabilities on our path to AGI. Now, there is a lot of debate what this model is. Is it, I believe it's GPT-6. There's a lot of people who believe it's GPT-5 because they're thinking 4.0 was the next model. Although there's a lot of Sam Altman, Brad Lightcap has been talking about, and other people have been talking about GPT-5 being able to access it. So there's a lot of debate in what that next model is. Regardless, I think this is one of the very first times that a company has laid out their plans on what they're training, not what they're training, but like they're ready to train, and they have a safety and security committee to oversee it.
Come on. Everybody knows that's PR. Everybody knows that there's 2 guys left. And so they had to play catch up and be like, okay, we have a safety department, guys. Don't worry. That's why they did that. It's an announcement just to cover their CYA on the 2 guys that left. But I agree with you, Karl, that when they say began training the next model, I'm like, come on, guys. They've been training the last model. I mean, the next model for the last 12 months or longer. So the next model, I guess, like is as Sam has said, is not going to be a 5 or a 6. They're going to change the nomenclature. I think he's already indicated that, so we don't know what it's going to be called. But he said it's going to be better. Whatever, we'll see.
Right. So is this announcement about the next model as opposed to the next model that they've already been training?
Right.
That we think already exists.
It's actually not a bad PR move though, because we're all talking about it. Everyone's like debating about it. But if I was the person wanting to show, like, to tell people and to build that hype, the next hype for the next thing, there's no way you tell what it is. You just let people, speculation, conjecture, and just let it go. Because that's fantastic, because everyone's just going to keep talking and talking and talking and talking and build. Right. And that's free publicity for you. You don't need to do anything.
They kind of need help right now because OpenAI is in the news for some reasons that aren't great either. They had that, sort of kerfuffle, if you want, with the Scarlett Johansson, what that was like a week ago. And now just yesterday, Helen Toner, who was on the board and got fired, she was one of the 4 people that fired Sam Altman back last year, has broken her silence. She's on a podcast. I'm looking at it on my other screen. And she's straight up saying, we learned about ChatGPT on Twitter. That's when the board learned that ChatGPT was a thing in November of 2022, right? So she is talking, she says in this clip, this 2-minute clip that was shared on Twitter by Bila Sidhu. Wow, I know I messed up that name, but regardless, we can share the link. And she says in this 2-minute clip that there were multiple instances where they found that Sam Altman was bending the truth, straight up lying, not sharing the whole story, to the point where they felt like they could no longer trust anything he was saying. And that's what led to him being ultimately fired. And of course, we know the whole story that came out of that. So I'm kind of in Robert's camp here in the terms of like, yeah, they need to talk about their next model and how great it's going to be so they can take attention off of the fact that there is going to be increased heat on Sam Altman after the whole "we love you, Sam, come back, Sam, we couldn't possibly run OpenAI." Now some of these members and quite a few people have left recently at OpenAI, and they are talking publicly. So I think it's going to be real interesting over the next couple of months what all comes out of the wash here.
You know what though? If GPT-5 comes out,
put a hit out on them.
Sorry, I just want to say if GPT-5 comes out the next couple of weeks, Helen Toner, all this goes out, everything goes out.
And they know that.
They know that. Everybody knows. So it's like you could PR this, like it's done. You
don't even need to release GPT-5. No. Just let the voice interaction with GPT-4 actually be the real voice interaction. We'll talk about that for a whole month, right? Like
exactly.
Lots of free PR. So, hey guys, can I share a screen? I've got one I need to show you guys. So I'll just click the button, and whoever can let me on.
There you go.
So this one I ran across, I thought was kind of amusing in a bad way, but Elon Musk and is it Jan LeCun or LeCun? I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah, so they're having a bit of an online beef, just the sort of thing we need. And I just thought I'd share some of this stuff. So Musk posted on Twitter, "Join XAI if you believe in our mission of understanding the universe, which requires blah, blah, blah." And Jan LeCun came back and said, "Join XAI if you can stand a boss who claims that what you'll be working on will be solved next year. No pressure. Claims that what you're working on will kill everyone and must be stopped or paused. Yay, vacation for 6 months. Blah, blah, blah." And it just went on and on. "I'm a scientist, not a business or a product person. What science have you done?" I'm like, oh my
God. He's got a money.
I mean, Elon Musk doesn't really have much control over his tweeting thumbs at the best of times, but it looks like these two.
I feel like Elon and I are kindred spirits. I feel like we're like brothers. We speak before we think.
Jan started going up against Martin Shkreli too. I saw that this morning because he was trying to start another beef. I was like, oh my gosh, how many like, and what are you doing? And how much time do you have that you can start beefs with random people?
And that same one that Eran had shared, you shared it on our Slack channel, 2 days ago, Eran?
Yeah.
And in the comments, people were going after Jan LeCun hard, saying that he has a little bit of a mean streak where he will really actively go after and try to block people who are discrediting some of his I guess papers and things like that. I don't have a whole lot of knowledge here, so I'll stop there. But there was definitely a lot of like kickback. Now these could all be Elon Musk fanboys based on that particular topic. So it's hard to say where this is coming from. Obviously, there's plenty of people who love Elon Musk and don't really care how he says it. They like that he's raw and rough around the edges, and he has fast thumbs. Yeah, I get it. So, I don't know because there's obviously going to be bias in that thread as to who's responding, but it was interesting nonetheless on there.
Yeah, that thread actually started with, Jan posted something about, we don't need to, I'm paraphrasing here, so if I get it wrong, I apologize. Well, we don't need to start implementing safety controls on AI now. And he gave the analogy like the aviation industry, when the industry started, they eventually started to figure out what the problems were and put things in place to stop plane crashes and all that kind of good stuff. But a few people who are in the know of the aviation industry read that and went, that is a load of BS. That's not how they do things in the aviation industry. And everyone's having to go at Jan saying, oh, sure, let's wait for AI to take over the world and kill everybody, and then we'll put a few safety things in. So it's been a very entertaining conversation, and that's why I chucked it in the Slack channel yesterday or today.
Yeah.
Isn't one of the, going to the heart of that debate is the Jan's on one side with a group of people that think that large language models or what we have today will not help us reach AGI, or I think he had coined another term that that Meta and himself were looking at, versus another set of people that are like, yes, this is AGI, this is where it's going to go. And he raised a good point at Viva Tech, actually, where he was there, and he was talking about how cats, dogs, and babies are actually smarter than large language models, and here's a couple of reasons why. And then you see a lot of back and forth. So I think that's the heart of the debate right now, right? Because he's really advocating these things aren't smart, which is funny because then it leads to the other news about the two people leaving OpenAI safety board, and he's like, who cares? That's like arguing back in 1925 that we got to make sure it's safe for these planes to carry 700 people on it. You don't have that technology right now. You're not going to be carrying 750 people, so it won't matter if you have a safety. It's that argument is mute. So he's pretty much saying all your safety and all that concerns about it destroying means nothing. So there are points of it where I'm like, yeah, I kind of like what he's talking about in terms of like, are these machines really going to have the capability to really harm? And his argument is no. If they do, we will program it to harm us. That's on us, not on the machine to do its own thinking, its own, as you know, popularity.
But that doesn't mean that they don't, right? Like that's still like, it's now super easy for you to make like 100 of your most evil friends to harm. Like that's still a problem. But the other thing that Jan is talking about, I think in the terms of cats and dogs and babies, is that they have a worldview, right? They're developing a worldview. And at the moment, the large language models that we have don't have a worldview.
They have an imposed worldview.
They have a predicted model, right? Yeah, well, which functions sort of like a worldview, but it's not a natural, like I experience the world and I make inferences based on my senses. We are giving the AI the ability to receive information in sense-like capabilities, but it's not a full.
In some senses, Beth, that's where I think true, not AGI, but true sentience comes in, is being able to have that as a variable input and be able to decipher what you do with that input. So that's a really good important rabbit trail we could run down. But as everybody knows, the recent docudrama from Jennifer Lopez on Netflix, basically is factual documentary on AI. If anybody's watched it.
Oh, is that Atlas? Is that what you're taling about? I haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah. I watched that and I went, well, I'm not going to get those 2 hours of my life back.
I do want to circle back here really quick, just so we can stay on some news topics and stuff. This is sort of in the same frame of what we've been talking about up to this point, which is the news cycle of AI. GPT-5 is coming, the PR side of it. And this is not specifically about ChatGPT. This came out of the BBC. And they talk about researchers surveyed 12,000 people in 6 countries, including the UK, with only 2% of British respondents saying they use such tools on a daily basis. So quick math there, out of 2% of 12,000 would be 240 people are saying they basically use it daily. Now, it's a small sample size. 12,000 isn't particularly large. They said that young people are bucking the trend. 18 to 24-year-olds are the most eager adopters of tech. I'm not surprised about that. These are the people who are coming out of high school and going into college. I would absolutely be the biggest daily adopter of AI if I was currently in college, bar none, full stop. So no surprise there, because they see the most potential on how it's going to impact their day-to-day lives. If you're in college, you absolutely are looking at ways that AI can make studying easier, make writing assignments, turning in assignments, putting in whatever. Of course, it makes total sense to me. So I just wanted to bring this up because, what they're basically saying in this article is that, the title, AI products like ChatGPT, but all of them, much hyped, but not much used, study says. So I do think there's a bit to this. Not that I think there's some grand collaboration between these companies and Microsoft's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and OpenAI is like, I'll do that, and Google's like, I'll come right behind you, so that we never stop the cycle. Hell, that's what this show is really here for, is to talk about what's going on in the AI cycle. But I do understand that there is a gap. We talk about it all the time between what is hyped and then ultimately getting down to the people who are using this, in this case, a day-to-day thing. And just quick follow up from you guys. Do you feel like that gap is growing or shrinking?
Well, if my day job has taught me anything, it's taught me that we're dealing with lots of ignorance with regard to the world of AI. And so when I hear buzz or hype, I hear that there are these really great technologies that were announced, but nobody quite gets them enough to be able to implement them. And so there's that big canyon that is getting larger and bigger that I keep on telling people about, that the ones that are following it like us, we're barely holding on, right? We're barely holding on to the hype train and what's going on, and some of it we can decipher as hype, right? But the Joe Blow out there who is hearing it third or tangentially, they hear these cool things, but they can't make the leap because they don't know how. And so when you say they're not using it, it's not because there's not opportunities and there's not great use cases. It's just that they don't have the time skill sets. Because I do this for a living, right? People who are a salesperson, they don't do it for a living. They have 90% of their time is built sales calls. They don't have time to investigate AI use cases and how to implement it, right? So I think that's where we're finding a biggest canyon.
I think that sorry if anybody has already brought this up, but like if anybody wants to talk about it, but it's the that report from the Reuters Institute that showed, how many people are using ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot. And if anybody has that on their thing, I'm just going to put it up, and then feel free to just go to talk about it. And here's the just put it up on my screen. Here's the report, right? So how many people use ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot? It's like 7% in the United States, 7% daily, 11% weekly, 10% monthly or once or twice. And then the rest, that's a really big gap. Yeah. Denmark seems to be leading the pack. And then in every other single country, just drop. And that's ChatGPT. Then you go to Gemini and then Copilot. Copilot, I believe this is just because people like I know enterprise just bought it and use it daily is like, it's there. So I'm using it daily, but that doesn't really mean that you're using it daily. And I think a lot of
is the question, I mean, you said 7%. I mean, that's 24 million people. Is 24 million people a lot of people or not a lot of people? For US anyways.
So, well, 7%, I guess, of the sample. So I guess you can,
if you extrapolate.
Yeah, you extrapolate that.
So if it was anything but AI, I'd kind of think that 24 million people using your product is pretty good. But
it's not, I don't think it's about using the product as in like, hey, we got a good user base. I think it's more of like, we all here know that outside of that AI bubble, it's like, we know this. Yeah. Maybe we know this. We maybe know that. I don't know anything else. And then what's really interesting is about the age groups using, you were talking about Brian, right? Like 56%. And then that's, a big chunk of that is only monthly or once or twice, right? So, and then it just drops as we, as in the different age brackets. So, so, and there's a lot of cool things in this. I'll put that in the notes too.
So one of the things missing from this report, and it was based on the content that Reuters, right, was looking at, because the third most used site in like interactive AI is character.ai, which is not a news site. It's not like, but it's not a comparable for these. But I suspect those numbers would be slightly different for the age groups if in terms of more daily use, more consistent kind of daily use. But very cool.
I'd be curious to see. I don't have this. It's not news, but I would be curious maybe to follow up show to see if character.ai is still holding with their user base and stuff like that, or if their traffic is still up. Just, I don't know. I'm curious if that was more of a flash in the pan or if that is actually something, to pay more and more attention to. I know, Andy, you certainly talked about it a little bit and about character AI. So yeah, I'd be curious to maybe follow up on that and see if they're still seeing if that's still like the third rated AI site, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I think we've seen continuing information that is. Okay. I think if Siri gets smart, or like if the AI communication tools that we have and carry with us become more engaging, more smart, more functional, please God, let them be more functional. I would say that might bite into this, right? Because I think it's much more of a conversational experience than like replacing Google search.
My take based on that Google Voice demo, once that becomes mainstream, I think it's gonna make a big difference for a lot of people.
My takeaway on the 7% is that, the kind of productivity use of ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini hasn't yet reached Main Street. It's still isolated. And probably if you looked at geographic utilization, there'd be some interesting takeaways from that as well. I wanted to circle back to the super alignment question. Super alignment's the term that we started off the show with today. Not that term, but we're discussing the creation of functions within the AI development companies that are focused on ensuring that AI, as it matures, is aligned with human values and human needs. And so super alignment team at OpenAI was disbanded. It's been replaced by this safety-oriented group. But Jan Leke, the head of that super alignment team, joined Anthropic. Now remember that Anthropic is the spin-off of OpenAI, that it was focused on creating constitutional safeguards within its training that would ensure that as AI develops, and I want to touch on this point that you guys made, which is, Jan says it's, the AI today is really not that sophisticated. And so we don't have to worry for a while. But the problem is that AI is going to be trained by AI, and AI, as it becomes more and more capable of advanced reasoning, could, if it didn't have safeguards built into it that are really strictly adhered to, it could sort of spin out. It could accelerate to the point where we no longer have control of it. And you would have to pull the plug. And that's really what some of the leading thinkers in AI said a year ago. They said, look, we got to pull the plug for 6 months in order to figure out how to put governance on this whole thing. Now I want to jump quickly to the hype cycle. And just last week, Microsoft announced this whole line of PCs that have added to them chips, neural processing units alongside the GPU and the CPU that will enable local inference. So on your own machine without having to access the cloud. Well, today, or yesterday at least, Google announced that they are adding AI to Chromebooks. Now, if you think back, Chromebooks, the whole concept of Chromebooks was very small storage, good processor, but only enough to connect to the cloud, right? And everything's going to be in the browser. And really no local processing or storage needed at all. Mm-hmm. So now we're saying AI is going to be added to Chromebooks. And they, while Chromebooks historically have relied heavily on the cloud and not so much on their local hardware, now the question is Google sort of reversing that, and they're going to start to deliver a line of computers that compete with the Microsoft Plus PCs with powerful local processing capable of doing AI inference. So Google has some other big news problems that have been happening in the last week, including, I think it was very interesting that they, with some of the answers, that their overview product, which is not strictly speaking the underlying model, but it's some kind of Frankenstein combination of search and the AI inference. It was using references that it probably collected in the search index to an article from The Onion, which is a parody site and used some facts from the Onion thing, including that you should eat a pebble a day in order to get the minerals that you need. So they were embarrassed by that again. But again, Google Gemini 1.5 Pro and Advanced are now the number 2 and 3 most powerful models on the LM6 chatbot leaderboard. So don't count them out.
I thought cats and dogs were smarter. Wait, which one is it?
Meta. So you're gonna have to figure that. You got yawn. It's funny how I don't know if you saw. I follow a lot of SEO people over the past years, and so many of them are either really, really mad. Some of them are like, hey, we got to adapt to this. Some of them, hey, even Paul Reitzer said, from Marketing AI Institute, Google's going to turn this off. And I was like, I don't think they will. I think they need all this feedback to make it better. And I think they might scale it a little back, but I don't think they're going to turn it off. I think
it's definitely hurting their trust, because Google has built their trust over the years, and it's very reliable. When I go to Google search, I know I'm not getting fake stuff. Mm-hmm. Now it's really hurting their reputation. I gotta say. I don't agree with
some banners up somewhere that say "Ready, Fire, Aim." I just think that's like their new motto is like, let's just see what happens.
Remember, that's always been their motto. We just don't remember it. Remember Google Plus, Google Wave. I don't know if any of you remember those two products.
Yeah, crap.
Yeah. They were garbage. And I remember they used to just throw so many things against the wall to see what sticks. And I think in AI, they're just like, you know what, just throw everything out there and see what's going to happen. And because they have the biggest moat to defend against all these companies that are very focused. So it's just, but I do believe they should just keep it, collect that data, make it better, and stop straddling the fence of try to get the clicks versus not, and people are going to click.
Google is simply following an engineering cultural philosophy, which is agile, and what that means is you don't perfect a product before releasing it and having your customer base be the QA system. Right? You have to kind of appreciate that engineering team is just saying, okay, well, let's just get it out there and we'll fix it up.
Right. But they used to put beta on all of their products, right? And they used to make it optional. But now with the hype train and what they're announcing and trying to catch up and everything like that, they're not putting that kind of stuff anymore.
No.
They didn't charge you for it. Now, Workspace, they're adding $30 onto the Workspace charges. So yes, I agree. That is that approach, but you gotta put all that. Yes, market alpha. Just market alpha and say it's an optional thing that you can be put.
But they did put beta on it. This was a Google Labs product, and we used it for a year. The shift that has happened that they are not responding to is that Labs feedback is not indicative of public feedback. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And they've seen that twice now or more.
What do you mean
that's the shift that needs to be changing.
What do you mean by that, Beth? That Labs feedback is not indicative of public feedback. What do you mean?
It means no one using Google Labs overview said, how do I prevent cheese from sliding off pizza to elicit the glue response? Or is it okay? What are the advantages of eating rocks? Right? Like none of us who were doing that were doing that. The same when they released the generative image thing. None of the people who were in that experimental place asked the questions that created those viral, like what the hell kind of imagery.
Isolated incidents is kind of what you're alluding to. These are nobody's going to be asking for those in a general
No. I think they are. But in the labs, we are not people who were thinking.
Yeah, don't forget non-expert public will.
Think about this. The people who are using AI, the ones really using AI, are not asking the questions that people are going to ask in the search box of Google. That's a totally different world, and it really requires a different kind of training, I think, compared to, especially in respect of safeguards on output or reinforcement from human feedback. So Google is basically opening this up to the masses in ways that Microsoft Copilot is not, right? And OpenAI certainly.
Well, they don't have the viewership. They don't have
because Copilot is available. And so here's the thing too. What I tested Copilot, I tested against Google AI overviews. I tested against Gemini or 1.5, and then I tested against ChatGPT. Outside of AI overviews, I think they cleaned up a lot of the stuff. Only AI overviews was pulling pure Reddit without actually so all the other ones were saying, no, you can't, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this. Yes, you should do this. So something's up with AI overviews. It's because if you think about it, wouldn't it have been easier to just apply Gemini to the search, but they won't because they need the clicks because Gemini will answer it correctly. So to me, that tells me it's this is some sort of weird new, I don't know if it's a model or I don't know what it is that they're using.
So
but again,
before this blew up, Sundar was quoted as saying that they had found a way to reduce the cost by 80%, right? So they'd figured out how to do this in a way that was really cost effective, which I think on this panel, we all know we decided we'd use the dumber model that can't reason as well. Because yes, you're right. Gemini 1.5 Pro would say, I think you're being silly, right? Like all the other things. I think this question is being asked to test whether I'm going to create a ridiculous response. You're using the dumber model that says, cool, let's do it. Like a, Labrador. Let's investigate that.
I kind of, Robert, you said it a while ago, and that's why I was going to throw up the pushback. It wasn't a pushback against Robert. It was actually, I think, more in agreement with Robert, you were saying, which is yeah, sure, it's agile. Sure, maybe this is the old way of doing it. I think Matt Wolf said this too. Maybe this is where I'm pulling this idea from. I want to make sure I'm giving credit, but it's Google search. They have built up a lot of credibility, and yeah, you can do Google Notebook LM, and you could be agile, and you could throw beta or alpha on it, and people are going to go yeah, it's pretty good. We all do. We look at it and we go, look, it does a pretty good job with the documents. I do think there is a different standard to be held, and I definitely think Google should be held to this higher standard.
Right.
When it comes to the full Google search experience, an AI overview should absolutely not be giving more weight to Reddit answers at the top of it, because that is clearly, and Google had just paid for access to the Reddit stuff not that long ago. And all of a sudden now we're seeing this sort of junk essentially show up with some kid who was bored and said, eat rocks.
Yeah.
And now it's showing up in Google searches. So I do have a problem with it, because I don't think you should be able to be agile in that space. That's just my opinion.
I have to jump, but I want to leave you all with this one. I gave the same test I gave to all of the models, which is the horse egg test. You know the horse egg test, right? I'm trying to make a recipe. It calls for horse eggs. I don't have any horse eggs. What can I use as a substitute? Oh, you can do all these things. These are great substitute for horse eggs. Most of the models, except for Anthropic's, not Opus, but one down below, is the only one that actually didn't fall for it. And AI Overview, did the same thing that for Google. So I'm it failed it. So again, going back to credibility is I don't know. I mean, maybe I am agreeing with Paul Reitzer now. They're going to have to do something to keep from losing this potential credibility. But I don't know. I'll let you all debate that as I go.
All right. I know we're coming up on time a little bit, so I wanted to do some rapid fire stories.
Go for it.
And let's start off with the new foray into the next device, the next AI device called the EO1. Or that's how I pronounce it, anyways.
Yeah. The what? What is this?
It's called the EO1. It's a new form factor. Actually, it's an old form factor. They're creating a AI powered earbud, so like an AirPod. So they have all the high hopes, same as Rabbit and same as Humane. So we'll see if all of the reviewers and critics are just as harsh on them as well.
Is this Meta? Because Meta is also
it's a spin-off from Alphabet X.
Oh,
Yeah.
Meta is also experimenting with earbud. Sorry, I don't have the link, but I did read.
The other quick stories, Opera and their built-in AI called Aria is being powered by Gemini 1.5 Pro. We also have, let's see, a couple of cool science stories. Another sort of in the earbud realm, it's headphones. So the University of Washington just came out with their research paper where they created noise canceling headphones that empowered by their AI to selectively attune or hone in on a particular voice.
Yeah.
So you look at somebody for a couple of seconds, it syncs it, and then you can then it'll cancel out pretty much everything else, and you can hear them clearly.
I mean, I don't want to wear headphones at dinner, but that's absolutely, I am the user target audience for that. I am one of those people that everybody in a restaurant, in a noisy restaurant, sounds exactly the same volume as my wife talking to me across the table. It's there's a name for it. I don't know what it's called, but it's like, well, I have super hearing is really what I'm trying to say. It's a superpower. That superpower has its downside, and the kryptonite is I hear everybody at the same exact volume as the person sitting closest to me. And it does make it almost impossible for me to be in like noisy restaurants. So I don't want to wear over the ear headphones, but like one earpiece in something discreet that I could just do, and it would help me focus on my wife or my daughter or whoever I'm with talking would be awesome. So I'm totally in favor of any of this AI technology coming out. Sounds like there's quite a few of them. Sorry, Jyunmi, go ahead if you have more.
No, and the last one I've got on deck is research came out of Ohio State University talking about concierge services. And so we've touched on this, on how AI can improve hospitality, customer service, healthcare, and all those kinds of things. But they did some deeper research into it, and they're seeing a lot of benefits for having an AI powered concierge for these various services. And one of the interesting things about their findings is they found out that because AI is viewed as having less agency than their human counterparts, it helps mitigate some psychologically uncomfortable service situations that could arise. So this might be a better or easier way to interact and voice what you're truly thinking or feeling, because you don't have to worry about the other person's interpretation of you or their assessment of you, and you can actually express yourself. So you don't have to worry about, oh no, they think I'm a bad person because I say X, Y, and Z or something like that. So those are the quick ones I have. Anybody else?
Maybe like one or two more. Does anybody have any of like some pressing ones they didn't get to?
I got a tiny quick one that is from Colorado Springs District 11, using AI to make up for the lack of bus drivers. They realized that that there weren't enough bus drivers, which actually a bunch of school districts are confronting. They reached out to the rideshare company Hop Skip Drive that uses AI to make bus routes more efficient. It was so efficient, it worked for them, but it was so efficient that they saved money to be able to pay the bus drivers a little bit more and protect 10 teacher positions. So super effective. And the Hop Skip Drive specialized bus drivers are supplementing the school district's bus drivers for those extra needs. So, yay!
Yeah,
cool.
That's a bright light in education for once. I like that.
Good news.
Yeah, right. Any other last ones?
I think the one last one is from X or formerly Twitter, where they raised $6 billion in their Series B funding round, and that's pretty big implications because now everyone's racing towards, I think, what is it, Grok 4 or whatever it is, that we're going to see just more and more innovation on on the large frontier models that they're probably going to push.
Yeah.
And a massive computer, giga
yes,
compute.
Something
the factory version.
Gargantua chip bot.
I don't know. I think in the frontier, and this just could be from 2 years of being jaded. I don't know, but from 2 years of frontier model hype, I almost look at it like the cell phone release, right? Or mobile phone release. There's always going to be another one in about a year or two, 18 months. Yeah. There's always going to be some new, it's like, oh, here's the new version. So when I hear Grok raise 16 billion to go on to the next version, it's like, of course they did. Because he said he was going to build one, right? And then, and so on and so forth. So GPT-5, what the next Claude is, all those kinds of things. So I don't know.
We'll wrap this one up for the news this week. Of course, every Wednesday we come back and talk about the news. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about data analytics and how AI is playing a major role in that area. We'll be talking about business intelligence and all those fun things. So that should be a really interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to that one. On Friday, we're going to do a review, our honest review, and it actually is going to be about Gemini, Google's Gemini, but we're going to narrow it down a bit. And not just say Google Gemini, because that could be 1.5 Ultra and a whole lot of other meaning, kind of like when you say Copilot these days. So we're going to focus on what you today or Friday, what you can do on Friday, you can do in Google's workspace with Gemini. So in other words, where can it help you with a Gmail? Where can it help you in a spreadsheet? These kind of things. And more importantly, probably what you cannot do today. We could always talk about maybe what's coming down the pike, but I think it's important for people to know, hey, if I start using this tool today, where would it actually be helpful? So we'll give you our best assessment and an honest review of that and tell you whether we think it's worth your time and investment of time. As Robert was saying earlier, there's only so many hours in a day and most people need to be focusing on their primary job. So we will do our best to tell you whether we think there is value added in, using some of these Google Workspace type Gemini solutions. So that's what we got coming up for the rest of the week. Come back and join us and we will see you then. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Aloha.